Hello and welcome back to the deep dive here on Westferry Times. Today we're tackling, well, a really big question. Can the UK truly become a global powerhouse for innovation? We've got some fascinating material here looking at, everything from the buzz around tech startups to the real sticking points in funding and that whole ambition to spread innovation across the country. And to help us navigate all this, we're absolutely thrilled to welcome Dr. Rajiv Malhotra. He's a leading tech economist and innovation policy expert, and he brings this incredible perspective from time in both Whitehall and Silicon Valley. Welcome to the deep dive.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We're really looking forward to your insights. So let's dive straight in. When we think about startup nations, places like Israel or the US immediately come to mind. Where does Britain really sit in that global picture right now? There's this feeling, isn't there, that the UK often punches above its weight in this area?
That's a very good way to put it. Yes, the UK definitely has a strong claim there. London, I mean, it's undeniably Europe's major tech hub. And the number of unicorns, those billion-dollar companies that the UK has produced is, well, it's impressive. It leads Europe. Plus, you have our world-class universities generating research, generating talent. But, and it's an important but, you look at the sheer scale, the scale of investment, the overall global clout compared to giants like the US or increasingly China. Well, the UK still has ground to cover to truly, dominate globally.
Right. So it sounds like the ingredients are there, maybe incredible raw potential, but perhaps we're, I don't know, missing a trick in how it's all brought together, or maybe lacking that really cohesive long-term plan.
That's actually a helpful analogy. You could think of it like a Michelin star kitchen. You've got brilliant chefs, amazing ingredients. It's the UK's talent, the ideas. But sometimes maybe the consistent large-scale funding isn't quite there, or the timing isn't perfect, or that overarching national recipe for, sustained global leadership.
Yeah.
It needs a bit more work.
Okay, let's dig a little deeper then into the current state of play. Britain's tech ecosystem. We're in this post-Brexit, post-pandemic world now. How's that new reality shaping things for startups and innovation?
Well, the ecosystem has shown actually quite remarkable resilience. That's a
Mhm.
real positive. Let's say, the very high levels of venture capital we saw back in 2021, they've naturally adjusted, moderated a bit, but the level of activity, it's still significant. We're seeing really vibrant growth in areas like fintech, obviously, but also health tech, AI. These are booming. The challenge, though, I think, lies in perhaps the slightly uneven nature of government support and maybe a feeling that a really crystal clear long-term strategic vision is still evolving.
That's interesting. The government did launch its innovation strategy, didn't it, back in 2021, aiming to be a science superpower.
Yeah.
Looking back now, how effective do you think that strategy has actually been in addressing the core needs, the opportunities?
The ambition in the strategy, well, it's certainly laudable. That goal of being a science superpower definitely plays to the UK's strengths. But the implementation, it has felt a bit uneven, perhaps patchy is the word. One area that really could be strengthened is that sort of joined up thinking and action between government departments, industry, which is incredibly diverse, and of course the universities, the research bedrock.
Yeah, that coordination piece seems key. Let's talk about unicorns for a moment. Those billion-dollar startups, they get all the headlines, generate so much buzz. But beyond that buzz, how crucial is the actual number of unicorns as a real indicator of a healthy innovation ecosystem? Does it tell the whole story?
It's a convenient metric, definitely.
Yeah.
Easy to understand, easy to track. And, producing unicorns consistently often does signal a maturing ecosystem. It suggests the conditions are broadly right for high-growth companies. The UK hitting over 150 unicorns, that's undoubtedly a positive sign. However, I think the more critical questions are about, well, are these businesses sustainable in the long run? Are they actually solving significant real-world problems and creating lasting value beyond just the valuation?
That's a really important point. Could there actually be downsides to focusing so heavily on just churning out more unicorns, maybe at the expense of, I don't know, other important things?
Oh, absolutely. There's a risk. If the focus becomes almost solely on hitting that high valuation, you can potentially inflate bubbles.
Yeah.
It's crucial to strike a balance between that rapid scaling, the whole blitz scaling idea, and building really solid fundamental foundations. And those foundations, they include things like strength and deep tech, properly developing and protecting IP, intellectual property, and crucially cultivating that pipeline of skilled, adaptable talent.
Right. Talent is always key. Now, a concern we hear time and again is this funding gap. Specifically, that difficulty companies face moving from early seed or angel funding to those bigger, later stage rounds like Series B, Series C. Why does that gap seem so persistent?
Seem to be largely a structural issue in the UK investment landscape. We're actually quite good at the very early stage stuff seed, angel rounds. And the tax incentives, things like the Enterprise Investment Scheme, EIS, and CEAS, they've definitely helped stimulate that early investment, giving tax relief.
Right.
But as startups need larger chunks of capital to really scale up Series B, Series C, and beyond, many find they have to look towards U.S. investors. And the potential downside there is, well, valuable IP and maybe even top talent can end up migrating across the Atlantic.
Okay, so if that's the problem, what are the potential solutions? What could actually be done to bridge that gap and keep more of that later stage growth funded here in the UK?
Well, a key element has to be encouraging more investment from our own domestic institutional investors, pension funds, for instance. They manage huge amounts of capital. Even a relatively small shift in their allocation towards UK startups and scale-ups could be, frankly, transformative. Initiatives like the Mansion House Compact, where some major pension funds committed to increasing investment in unlisted UK growth companies, that's a positive first step.
Ah,
But we need to see that kind of thinking become much more widespread and, frankly, happen faster.
faster progress needed there. Okay, let's shift focus slightly to geography. How is innovation actually spread across the UK? Is the Golden Triangle, London, Oxford, Cambridge still completely dominant in attracting investment and talent?
Well, yes and no. The Golden Triangle undeniably remains a very powerful magnet for both capital and skilled people. Its concentration of world-class universities is a huge factor, of course. However, and this is really encouraging, we are seeing significant growth and the emergence of really vibrant innovation hubs in other cities, too. Manchester, Leeds, Bristol, Edinburgh, they're showing real dynamism. A key challenge, though, in nurturing this regional growth is definitely connectivity. Both digital infrastructure, reliable high-speed internet, and efficient physical transport links. They're crucial.
So, given those challenges, what role can government initiatives like the whole leveling up agenda realistically play in helping to decentralize innovation and boost growth in those other promising regions?
Leveling up could play a very significant role, potentially. Innovation can be a really powerful engine for regional economic development, but only if that foundational infrastructure is properly in place right across the country. So that means things like strategic investment in better broadband, especially in more rural areas, targeted grants and support for regional incubators and accelerators, and also encouraging local councils to use smart procurement buying from local innovative businesses.
Right, using public spending smartly. Okay, let's take a step back for the bigger picture. How does the UK's innovation landscape really stack up compared to the rest of the world? What are our key strengths globally, and where do we, still lag behind?
The UK definitely has some significant advantages.
Hmm.
Our fundamental science base is genuinely world-leading. We have a particularly strong, dynamic fintech sector.
Mm.
And there is, I think, a deeply ingrained culture of innovation and entrepreneurship here. However, in terms of sheer scale, our ecosystem is still smaller than the US. And our approach is perhaps less centrally directed than, say, China's. Regulation's also a really important factor to consider. Things like the recent online safety bill legislation like that needs very careful calibration to ensure it protects people without inadvertently stifling innovation and growth. That's a tricky balance.
Yeah, that balancing act is crucial. Do you think the UK maybe has a bit of a, I don't know, a branding problem on the global stage when it comes to innovation? Are we good at telling our own story?
There might be something in that. While the UK definitely has numerous really impressive innovation success stories, perhaps we don't always consistently and effectively amplify those achievements internationally. This could be particularly important now post-Brexit for attracting top international talent. We need to make sure that narrative of the UK as a welcoming, innovative, forward-thinking place is communicated really clearly and persuasively around the world.
Okay. This has been incredibly insightful. Thank you. To sort of bring things towards a close, what would be your key takeaways? Maybe a message for policymakers, one for the founders actually doing the innovating, and one for our listeners.
Okay, well, for policymakers, I'd stress the need for that long-term vision and ensuring ambitious goals are actually backed by consistent, substantial, long-term funding. It can't be stop-start. For founders and entrepreneurs, be bold, absolutely be ambitious, but always focus on building businesses that tackle real problems and create genuine, lasting value. Don't just chase the valuation. And for your listeners, I'd say, pay attention to the innovation happening around you in your own communities. Support it where you can, maybe by backing a local startup, or even just by engaging with politicians on why investing in R&D really matters for everyone's future.
That's beautifully put. Dr. Rajiv Malhotra, thank you so, so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us today on the deep dive. And that brings us pretty much to the end of our discussion for this time. If you found this deep dive valuable, please do subscribe to Westferry Times, share it with friends or colleagues who might be interested. We'll be back soon with more in-depth conversations, digging into more of the questions and ideas that matter. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching Westferry Times. Goodbye for now.